Hi, I'm Cheryl. I wrote this book, Madness on the Brink of Eco-Apocalypse. Why? Because humans are destroying Earth's life support systems in a whole lot of awful ways, killing off our biodiversity, polluting every corner of the planet with plastics, destabilizing the climate. I just couldn't understand, why are we not doing more to save ourselves? So I looked around to find groups and organizations who are doing something. And in this video series, we are finding out what they are up to inspire the rest of us to do a whole lot more. Because we sure can't wait for the government, the megacorps, or the oligarchs to do it for us. We're here to save ourselves. Today we're talking with Sandy Krasner, who is a member of the Citizens Climate Lobby, a group which I showcase in the book. And he will be talking at the TEDx in June in Pasadena. So we'll share a link to that video when this comes out. Excuse me. Welcome, Sandy.
Thank you. Nice to see you. Good.
Our first question here is always to touch a bit of grass, so to speak. So if we were to look outside the walls behind you and into the outdoors around you, what would we see nature-wise?
Oh, just sort of standard suburban lawns, trees, all that type of thing. We're actually quite fortunate. We live in Altadena, about a mile from where the Eaton Canyon fire
Mm.
started. For some reason, our neighborhood is completely intact. We have houses burned within about a quarter of a mile
Oh,
of here.
um,
So we're extremely fortunate.
so glad to
But
hear
we
that.
very much understand what happened to a lot of other people that we know. And I guess sort of part of the moral of that is the Eaton fires, if people don't know this, were made very much worse by climate change. I mean,
Mhm.
California has always had winds, we've always had fires, but this one um, was just sort of a perfect storm. We had what they call climate whiplash. We had a year of very heavy rains. We had lots of nice greenery grow up. We had a year of drought and dryness. Everything dried up and turned to tip kindling, and then we had record winds come through. And that was just this. This is climate change, folks. If this is not 10 years from now, this is happening. So
Well, I'm so glad to hear that your neighborhood survived. For me, I'm maybe 3 or 4 miles further out, but still, it
mhm,
was quite close for comfort. So,
yeah.
uh, I'm looking out my window here, and I see a shiny green vine traipsing over my neighbor's fence, and it is laden full of red trumpet flowers. So, hello, spring.
Yeah.
Okay, Sandy, tell us a little bit about Citizens Climate Lobby and what inspired you to get involved.
Oh, okay. So I'm the group leader for the Pasadena-Foothills, California chapter of Citizens Climate Lobby. CCL is an international organization. We have chapters in every congressional district in the U.S. And what Citizens Climate Lobby focuses on is our citizens, and we're lobbying our representatives, our elected members, for legislation that will help fight climate. So what we've always done is we've always focused on federal legislation. Our chapter lobbies Judy Chu, Jimmy Gomez, and used to be Adam Schiff in our area. It's now forgetting the name, Lauren. Um, uh, Forgetting the name. Anyway, the lady who replaced Adam Schiff as the representative. Um, yeah, so that's what we have always been lobbying. CCL particularly was lobbying for bills having to do with carbon pricing
Mm.
taxes, um, which economists tell us is the most effective way to get people to reduce greenhouse gases. As people probably know, there's not really much going on with climate legislation in Washington, D.C. In fact, the main thing we're doing is trying to protect the gains we had um, under the Inflation Reduction Act. So that's kind
That was
of it.
definitely going to be one of my questions. What can you do now? Then there's really
Right now in Washington, there's not much. and to minimize the damage. And that has mostly been on lobbying legislators. A lot of them are coming to realize that a lot of the tax advantages, Inflation Reduction Act, is money that's being spent in states. So they're getting a lot of advantages out of this. They're trying to work with them,
Right.
but it's, as I said, expensive action. The other thing that a group within CCL has been doing, we have a group called Climate Futures California. They're starting to lobby on legislation in Sacramento, California. What's out there actually is a huge amount going on in California. California, as usual, is kind of the leader in
Mhm.
climate legislation, clean air legislation, all that type of thing. In fact, one of the actions they're fighting in Washington now is California has always had a waiver to be able to impose
Right.
stricter standards on automobiles than the rest of the country has, because the governor has imposed an order that won't be selling any more gasoline powered cars in California after 2035. The administration is trying to reverse that. So that are trying to reverse that. Here in California, there's a lot of stuff going on as far as trying to help the climate. Particular area that our group is working on, this Climate Futures California. California has a cap and trade program. Essentially, they're charging for the amount of greenhouse gas that you emit, and they're trying to reallocate some of that money to help reduce the cost of electricity here in the state, which will encourage people to electrify, to shift to electrical things. So this is all very, very wonky and legal, but this is, one of the things that people can do is involved in lobby and state representatives. Um,
And you mentioned that you operate in every congressional district,
mhm.
and that is a lot of different
Uh-huh.
viewpoints, even in normal times,
Yes, yeah. And the
whatever
thing
that
is,
is anymore.
so
So
the thing
I'm
is,
just curious, how does a CCL operate? Do you have some guiding principles for all the chapters, or do they each decide their own priorities? How does it work?
no, it's kind of more centralized. So CCL has a national staff in Washington, and we have volunteer chapters everywhere. Primarily, what we have is the national staff is sort of have particular bills that they were pushing. All the congressional representatives in the state understand what bills are being proposed in the Congress. Um, and they come back to us and say, here's a particular set of bills we're interested in. You should go lobby congressional representatives
Mhm.
and tell them to support this bill.
Yeah, when I was writing the book, I actually interviewed someone from CCL in a Dallas chapter,
Uh-huh.
and she was saying in Texas, yeah, they emphasize economics, not over politics, and that they talk about, how wind farms. I'm giving these as made up examples. I don't remember exactly what she said, but for example, what the benefits of a wind farm from an economic advantage, not
Yeah.
from maybe uh, a scientific or
Yeah.
philosophical perspective.
Well, and one of the things that's amazing there is California, Texas really has been. When you think of Texas as oil country, it has been one of the leaders in introducing renewable energy because they
Right.
have a tremendous amount of wind, they have a tremendous amount of sun, they have a tremendous amount of
Yeah.
solar. So they are really a leader in that. And Midwestern states like Iowa have huge amounts of wind power. So it's really, kind
Hmm.
of trying to explain to them, in addition to being important for the climate, this is important uh, for your economy. So
Right.
this
Right.
is the type of thing that we're doing.
Well, it sounds like
And
lobbying is a big part of what you do. Is there
mhm,
training for volunteers who maybe
Yeah,
say, I don't know how to talk to Congress people about this kind of
yes,
stuff.
yeah. And CCL, they have a tremendous amount of resources. There's a website for CCL members called Community, and they have just a tremendous amount of information, resources. We have briefings from, people who are real policy experts. Every month we have a national meeting, and they will tell us about this is what's going on in Congress, this is the type of things we're seeing. And they'll have somebody come in who's a recognized expert on some aspect of climate change, will come in and talk to us. They also do training for lobbying. One of the things CCL does is they have an annual conference in Washington, D.C. This one is this year it's in July, and they try to get people to come in from every district. And we go up on the Hill, um, and go to every every office, every congressional. I did that a few years ago, and it's quite an amazing experience. You know, if you're lucky, you get to meet the congressional member. If you meet with and CCL has training. They actually have a fairly, a real great organizing of this is how you do a lobby meeting, and you have somebody who's the timekeeper, ask, a sort of an appreciation of member, and then you'll have an ask. These are particular bills we want to talk to you about. Very, very well organized. So it's really,
Are there any are there any like commitments? If I'm going to join a chapter, you have to put in a certain number of hours or attend certain meetings or that kind of
no,
thing.
it's not. Yeah, there's no formal commitment. It's just the way I've looked at it is we kind of get everybody together and say, all right, these are the things we have coming up. Please come join us. Please come participate.
And people can
Lobby
volunteer for
meetings.
what they feel
Yeah.
comfortable with.
So each representative we have a liaison, and they're responsible for essentially contacting the staff, arranging for a meeting, getting a group of people together as a lobby team, and that type of thing. In addition to that, one of the things we do is tabling. I think I told you when we were tabling at this Echo Fair in Glendale, where we go out and talk to people. We tell people sort of what CCL is doing, but in general, just talk to them about and things that they can do. So it's
Nice.
kind of what CCL is.
Well, I want to ask you about the community. What kind of people do you see coming to CCL chapters? Are they younger, older? Is it a diverse community? And I'm
Yeah.
asking
Mhm.
primarily because you would keep hearing how younger people, and I have two young adult children myself, are especially deeply affected and depressed about
Mhm.
the lack of action on all of these
Okay.
things. And I'm wondering if CCL is a place where they could find an opportunity to do something and be welcomed.
Yes, it very much is a place where you'd be welcome. Um, a couple of things. One of the things CCL emphasizes is they're very much a bipartisan or nonpartisan organization, because we're going to need Democrats and Republicans involved in that. So CCL is very emphatic about trying to make sure everybody feels comfortable. In our district, our districts are blue districts, so it certainly tends to lean towards the Democratic side, but everybody is welcome. We are trying to get as many young people in as we can. Our organization tends to skew older, um, in part because we have, older people have presumably more time to devote to this. But we have had a lot of cases of particularly mothers showing up. And they don't always have a lot of time to volunteer, but they sort of come in and say, I got these two kids, and and I'm really worried about the world that they're going to grow up in. So
Sure. Yeah.
very much looking
Does
yeah.
CCL collaborate with other environmental organizations, advocacy groups to amplify the impact or the
Yes, yeah. Yeah, very much. Um, so one particular example that I'm working with in our chapter, there's a group here in Pasadena, California called Pasadena 100, and it's a coalition of a whole bunch of groups. So you kind of got this federal focus, got this state focus. Pasadena 100 is very local. That they are doing is focusing on our local municipal power utility, Pasadena Water and Power, convincing them to go to 100% renewable energy by 2030. And we had a city council resolution passed 2 years ago directing the utility to do that. Now what we're doing is we're getting involved in the details of exactly how do you do that. And part of this is just understand how an electric utility works and the particular things that they worry about. So
Mhm.
this is hyper local. Uh, Lots of opportunities for people to get involved. And one of the things we have a number of teenagers, school children in the area who have gotten involved, giving talks at our rallies, that type of thing. We have
Mhm.
people out who are starting to talk to the school district about solar panels on their buildings and their parking lots. So, there's a lot that people can get involved in kind of at every level. Yeah. And
And I'm sure it
certainly,
varies by geography and location and
yeah.
political
So
issues there too. Yeah.
so not many people are going to be able to join Pasadena 100, but in wherever you are, you'll find people who are doing this type. And actually, one of the things I've liked about CCL is we bring in people involved in a lot of these things. So it's kind of a gateway drug.
Mhm.
You know, somebody comes in and says, I'm working with this group. Who belong to Sierra. Well, this is how I met people in
Yeah.
people who are doing, working in all sorts of areas. So it's a good way to connect.
Sure.
So,
Do you have any examples of successes where CCL has influenced climate policy in some way?
I think we had some effect on the Inflation Reduction Act. I don't think that we're really a driver for
I'm
that.
sure it's hard to measure. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the CCL volunteers, I think in Washington, D.C., started up something called the Climate Solutions Caucus in the Congress. And they call this um, Noah's Ark caucus. They have one Democrat comes in with one Republican partner. Um, and that's so that got a lot of at least a lot of people talking to each other and thinking about climate. Um, Unfortunately, a significant number of the Republicans no longer in the Congress. Maybe because they were too dedicated to trying to fix
Yeah. It's a
it.
tough
There's
time.
been some effect. So I certainly would say in our Pasadena area, we've had a tremendous effect,
Okay.
changed things significantly. So there is hope.
So this might be the most difficult question, but what one piece of advice would you give someone who, say, wants to stay informed about what's happening, but also doesn't want to be too depressed to do anything about it? Asking for a friend.
Well, well, the first thing, and I'll give you a couple of them, but the first thing is to recognize that there are things you can do. And that's kind of what we're talking about.
Yes.
Things you can do that will make a difference. Um, they may not fix things immediately, but there are things you can do. And actually, let me talk about a couple of those. Um, the first thing is vote. Like I said, CCL doesn't endorse particular candidates, but do your research, find the candidate who's the most climate friendly. Actually, if you follow the Robert F. Buckley rule, the most electable candidate who is the most climate friendly, and get out and vote for them. So don't throw away your.
Right.
Um, One of the things that a buddy of mine and actually a lot of our people have been doing, we're in a solidly blue district, but the next district over is a swing district. We went out and spent a lot of time walking the streets campaigning for the climate friendly candidate there. So there's things you can do. One of the things they tell us in the CCL training is the most important thing you can do is talk to people and tell them climate. There's people out there who don't understand that this is an issue, and there's people who tell you that there's nothing you can do about it. So
Right.
things we do is we do tabling, farmers markets, anybody else will have us, and we go out and talk to people. And I can't prove it. I got to hope that moves the needle. Maybe helps inform people about it. All right.
Yeah, I think person to person, that's the best way to,
Yeah.
in person to person, I would say is the best way to really,
Yeah.
really get to the issues with someone, because just posting stuff on the internet,
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
I,
And I'll tell you, one of the things that I'm trying to do now to get involved in, since we're here in Altadena and we had thousands of homes destroyed, I'm starting to try to understand how to make contact with the people who are going to be rebuilding their homes and contractors and architects. Um, because if people are building homes from scratch, there's a lot of things they can do individually, particularly encouraging people to build back with electrical appliances. You don't need to have natural gas in the house anymore. There's lots of climate reasons for that, and there's lots of indoor pollution reasons for that. So we're trying to get in contact with them. One of the guys the guy that founded the chapter is working in an area they call passive houses, which is essentially trying to build the houses that are well sealed, so you're not and well insulated, so you're not spending energy heating the outdoors or cooling the outdoors.
right.
And this is the type of thing you can do. Some of this with retrofits existing home, but it's the type of thing that's really appealing if you're building from scratch. And the loss of all the homes is a tragedy. It's also an opportunity to build back better and build back sustainably. So we're trying to get in touch with people doing that. So yes,
Great.
there's lots of things you can do individually.
Is there anything else you would like people to know about CCL before we wrap this up?
Uh, no, I think I've talked about what
Okay.
CCL is. Like I said, it's to me the biggest advantage is it's a way of connecting
Mhm.
about climate, and you learn from what other people are doing.
And so often just talking about it with
Yeah.
someone who's informed, let's say,
Mhm.
that can take the edge off of the awfulness of feeling this dread of why aren't we doing something, and how bad it
Yeah.
is too.
Yeah.
So that's good. Okay, how do people get involved with CCL? How do they find a chapter where they are?
Okay. Well, we'll give you the website, but if you just go on the web, Google Citizens Climate Lobby, it will take you to our national website. There's a place on there where you can join. There's a find chapter feature where you can go on and find a chapter in your area, and wherever you're living should be a chapter somewhere close to you. They will get in touch with us. I think today I got uh, another contact from our central thing saying, here's somebody who wants to join your chapter. So that's probably
Oh,
the best way to get in touch with us.
that's great.
Okay.
Well, thank you, Sandy. Thank you so much for chatting with me today. I appreciate all that you and CCL are doing in these very challenging times.
All
I
right.
will include those links in the show notes.
Okay.
And if you enjoyed this conversation, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe if you'd like to hear from more community change makers. You can also read about more groups in my book, Madness on the Brink of Eco Apocalypse. And finally, if you have a group that you think we should showcase here, be sure to email me, contact me on Instagram. We want to give a voice to all who are caring for people, plants, and critters, because again, we sure cannot wait for our government, the oligarchs, or the megacorps to do it for us. We are here to save ourselves.